All right, you thinking about moving to the Chicago suburbs? Well, today I'm breaking down the top pros and cons of living in the Chicago suburbs so that you can make an informed decision on whether or not you think it's a good fit for you. And you're gonna wanna stick with me for one of these cons because once you hear it, you might decide right then and there, I don't want any part of that, and you might decide you don't want to move here. So let's get into it. All right, I mentioned to you about one of the biggest cons that might make you think twice about moving to the Chicago suburbs, especially certain Chicago suburbs. And I know which ones are notorious for having this problem. So give me a call if this problem is a concern for you. And you know what that is? It's water in our basements. You may come from a place that doesn't even have basements, or you may come from a place that was developed where they don't have these issues. And not all of the Chicago suburbs have them, but a bunch of them do. And especially the closer you get to the city, the more problems you're usually prone to have. And so what is that? It's water in our basements, like I said, and it can be devastating. We had a 2010, there was a FEMA declared disaster from so many people getting water in their basements, not from overland flooding. It's not river flooding. Okay, so I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about this because it's a horrible situation. But when I work with my clients, I always try to figure out and look for evidence of water, and then I talk to you about there's always things that you can do. So if you love a house, don't necessarily not buy it because of potential water issues, because there's two ways in particular that you can solve your water problem. So if you go see a house and your realtor tells you, well, you don't get water in the basement because this has a sump pump, run from the hills. They're not a good agent, all right? Sump pumps help for one type of water. I joke a little bit, but sump pumps help for one type of water, but not for the devastating type that we get here. So two types of water, groundwater, okay? That's what a sump pump, seepage and groundwater is what a sump pump is gonna help prevent. It's gonna help prevent that type of stuff. Water that comes in, maybe foundation cracks, or the house is really close to the water table with big rains, the ground table gets saturated, water comes up the basement floor. Sump pumps will help you with that. What they don't do a damn thing for is our biggest problem, which is storm sewer backup. We have had a lot of development, undersized storm sewers. This can also be very localized to where your house is on the block, and water will come back up the main storm sewer and come up your basement drain. And these are the types of things in certain communities. I know people who've had their entire basements fill from the floor all the way to the freaking ceiling, okay? This can be where your entire basement is covered, even with just an inch or two, is devastating to deal with. You can get mold issues, having to cut out drywall, and I'm telling you, this is extremely common, but there's ways to fix it. I had to do this in my own house. I installed a flood control device. So if you're worried about water in your basement, believe me, I joke when I work with my client, it's not if you get water in your basement, it's when you get water in your basement. So talk to me about this because I will walk you through the things that you can do. I used to work for FEMA, so I pay a lot of attention to water issues in basements. So anyways, that is a big, huge con. If you come from a place that you don't have to deal with this, like I said, I'm not talking about river flooding. I'm talking about water up your storm drains and groundwater that can be devastating to you. So one of my biggest cons of moving to the Chicago suburbs is water in your basement. All right, here, so for me, the number one pro of living in the Chicago suburbs and moving to this area is the city of Chicago. Right? You have, city of Chicago is a world-class city with absolutely everything that you can possibly want. And while you're not going to be living in the city of Chicago, the access to it is just incredible. If you like anything you possibly want is there. For you, date nights, for the kids. If you're into sports, we have them all. We have the Chicago White Sox for baseball. On the north side of town, we have the Chicago Cubs if you want to go to baseball games. If you want to go to basketball, we have the Chicago Bulls, one of the most popular teams in all of the NBA, even though they're not super great. We have the Chicago Bears for NFL football down in Soldier Field that's right on the lakefront. Just a gorgeous view, a gorgeous stadium. We got the Chicago Blackhawks. We even have minor league teams. We have the Chicago Fire for soccer. There is minor league hockey teams. If maybe going to the MLB games is a little bit expensive for the whole family, we have minor league teams. We have a team in Schaumburg. We have the Kane County Cougars. There's a team in Rosemont. There is just plethora of sporting events. If that is what you like to do, and when you have guests come, there's so many places you can take them. Like I just said, you can take them to all these sporting events. So I get super excited. I could talk about the stuff to do in the city of Chicago forever. I think it is truly one of the best things about living in this area. And I'm gonna keep going on for some other things. Music. I'm crazy about music. And if you like music, we have everything. We have a world-class symphony, right? We have an awesome opera house. We have huge, massive stadium concerts in places like Wrigley Field, Soldier Field. We have little venues with awesome blues, great jazz clubs. There's a place up in Highland Park, Ravinia, that is the oldest outdoor concert venue in the country that has just awesome events. So if you're into music, if you want to go out dancing, there is everything that you can possibly want in the city of Chicago. We have in the summertime, it like explodes with activity. There's a beach. We have a beach, right? So you're in the Midwest, but we have a beach with Lake Michigan. It almost feels like you're on the ocean sometimes. You go down to the beach in the summertime. There is festivals galore. There is every weekend, there's a different ethnic festival, probably 5 to 10 every single weekend that happens in the city. We have world-class museums, the Art Institute. There is so much for you to do with your kids on the weekends, for you to do if you want to, when you have friends and family coming in. So for me, one of the biggest attractions of moving here is the fact that Chicago is just an amazing city. We have some of the best food in the world, and every different type of food that you could possibly imagine you can get in the city of Chicago. So for me, the city of Chicago itself is one of the biggest attractions. And what's awesome about living in the suburbs is we have a metro system, a train system, that almost anywhere you live, you can easily get down there on a weekend. You can take the kids down, you can go down on a weekend, and the weekdays any day, but it's very easy to go park at those, especially on the weekend because people aren't commuting as much, and get down and spend the afternoon in the city and take advantage of one of the most beautiful cities in the entire world, which is Chicago. So for me, that is a massive pro, and you can tell I'm excited about it. I love living in this area. I love growing up here, and there is just so much to do, and you can still have that suburban vibe and suburban feel, which is why you're watching this video, because you're thinking about moving to the Chicago suburbs. And so later on, I'm gonna talk specifically about the vibe that you're gonna get in the Chicago suburbs versus the city, but the access to the city to me is just absolutely unparalleled and a great reason why you should move here. All right, so the traffic, I mentioned you how traffic sucks, and it really does. And what I wanna do now is I wanna actually show you that. And not only show you, but give you some tips. So what I'm gonna do is I have this Google map in front of me, and I wanna show you. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna start from scratch, all right? And I'm going to do something here. I'm going to just put in 1 South Wacker, which is like about right on the Western Loop, okay? And I'm gonna put in here that I wanna drive right now to Naperville. You might be thinking about Naperville. There's all types of different cities to move to. So here, departing right now, it is 6:45 p.m. on a Friday night, 51 minutes to get on a Friday night at 6:45 to get from downtown to Naperville. Now, you probably aren't going to be leaving work at 6:45. So what I'm going to do, you're going to see here, is I'm going to make this so it's standardized. But let's see here, Oak Park. What about Oak Park? I do a lot of business in Oak Park. 22 minutes to get downtown. So one of the things I love about being so close to the city in a place like Oak Park is, imagine, so 22 minutes, that's like the West Loop. If you wanted to go to a Bulls game, you're going to be in there in about 15 minutes parked, 20 minutes in the door. Anyways, that being said, let's go through and walk through why I'm going to show you the traffic and how it compares to different cities. And my recommendation to you is to different cities, different suburbs. My recommendation to you is to actually do this, okay? Is to go and Google Map the address where you're going to be working if you plan on commuting, and Google mapping the addresses of some of the places that you're looking at. All right. And what you also want to do, in my opinion, is then compare that to the train. Actually, the time that it would take you to leave your home, drive to the train, ride your bike, walk, however you're going to get there, get on the train, get off, get to your place of business, and then look at that schedule. The train is more relaxing. It's great, but it also might not actually save you much time. Now, there's a wear and tear on your car and blah, 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 but I love listening to music. I like listening to my podcasts, and I don't really like taking trains. So for me, I would rather drive. But if you want to commute via trains. I'm going to talk about public transportation in another part of this video as a pro here, but this is about traffic and why traffic sucks around here. So let's go back to what I want to show you here. Departing at, we're going to do, 4:30 p.m. All right. And I'm going to put Monday, not Friday. So I want to standardize this so you see this from city to city. So Oak Park, typically 24 to 45 minutes, right? There's going to be about a range that they're going to double in almost all these instances. Now, if you were thinking of a place like Elmhurst, you're looking at 40 minutes to an hour. I think these are sometimes on the low side here, by the way, but that's the difference, right? So maybe about an hour. Let's look at another community, Naperville. When you are looking and choosing between different communities, there's a lot of factors, and traffic and transit and commute is one of them. So I'm recommending you do this. I walk through with my clients, I give them tips like stuff like this. So give me a call. Happy to tell you the reality about some of these things, like how the traffic really is. Because yes, Google's going to give you a great indicator. And sometimes there's roads you can take that are going to avoid some of this traffic. But generally, when you're this far out, you have to take the expressway. So look, 55 minutes to an hour and 30, sometimes an hour and 50 minutes from Naperville. So that's, it is what it is. That's about as far out as a lot of people go. Evanston, you want Evanston? 35 minutes to an hour. So in my experience, I wanted to show you this on this map. In my experience, you are going to be probably a minimum of an hour, no matter almost any suburb of Chicago that you choose. So that is a graphical representation of what traffic's going to be like in the Chicago suburbs. All right, cost of living. If you are moving to the Chicago suburbs, whether it be from out of the area or from Chicago, you're probably going to want to have an idea of what it's going to cost you to live here. So I'm going to go through some of the things that you can expect living here. Now, I don't know where you're moving from, so some things might be more expensive and some things might be less expensive. The next part, I'm going to talk about properties specifically, but this is more about your day-to-day expenses. And one of the biggest ones is daycare. So what can you expect from daycare? Well, like everything, it's going to vary what community you're in. But on average, you're looking at about $1,700 to $2,000 in the Chicago suburbs per child for daycare. Now, if you're in the city right now, you'll say this is actually a little inexpensive because in the city, it's about $2,300 for daycare just to start. So if you're moving to the Chicago suburbs, you're actually going to save a little bit of money. Now, I don't know where you're moving from. That might seem outrageous to you. And to me, it seems outrageous anyways, but I want you to know what you can expect for daycare because you're probably going to be looking into daycare. Another thing is you need to start that process early because a lot of places, the waiting lists to get into the good daycare places can be months, if not years. So in addition to the cost of that, a little tip is do it early, all right? And even if you don't have a house yet, you can get on some of the lists. If you know that you're moving here from another place, this is a tip. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people call me, because I'm going to walk you through these different things that you're going to want to pay attention to when you're moving from another part of the country, because you might buy a house and then just want to enroll in daycare and realize that you could have done it and got on the list 6 months ago when you told them that you were actually going to be moving here. So that's a cost that you're going to incur in the Chicago suburbs, daycare, $1,700 to $2,000. Now, what about electricity? Okay, I'm going to give you an average bill for a pretty large house, a 3,500 square foot house, an old Victorian house. So not as energy efficient in gas, heating and cooling and everything, but I want to give you an idea of what you can expect for an electricity bill. And another thing, we only have one provider in most of these areas. Not everywhere, but mostly you have ComEd. And one other thing that's pretty cool, and I would talk to you about this, is that they do have an energy efficiency program where you'll see here, you get free LED lights, discounted thermostats, lots of different products that they have programs that you can either get for free or at a discount, and they will come and do an energy audit. So that's something that you might want to look into when you buy your house. All right, so a typical ComEd electricity bill, like I said, for a pretty big house, is going to run you about $280 a month on average. Now, in the summer when you're using your AC, it's going to be way higher, but that's a 12-month average that you can expect to spend for a pretty large size house. Now, obviously, you have a smaller house, you're going to spend less than that. And if you work from home and you use a lot of energy or electricity, electricity you're gonna spend, probably that much. But that's gonna give you a little bit of an idea of what electricity cost is. Now gas. Gas here in the wintertime, your bills are gonna go up like crazy. So, Nicor, which is the most common gas provider here, once again, we don't have a lot of options around here. Nicor actually has a program, a budget plan, because in the wintertime, for once again, I'm using this 3,500 square foot home as an example, you're looking at potentially $248 to $350 a month in gas bills. In the summertime, you're looking at about 55 maybe on average, once again, for a pretty large house. So, because a lot of people don't want to be spending 300 or 250 and then in the summertime 55, they do have a budget plan that they can put you on where they average that out and you pay per month. So in the summertime when it would be 55, you're going to pay more, but you're not going to be paying that $250 that you would if you were paying just month to month. So those are the electricity and gas costs. Now water. Water can vary not only around here, obviously from where you're coming from, I have no idea, but even I'll give you an example. Elmhurst water is like 50% higher than most of the other communities that I sell in. Go figure, right? That's crazy, but you wouldn't know that unless you reached out and talked to me about stuff like this. But what you can expect for a water bill is about $125 a month. So those are some of the expenses that you can expect, cost of living stuff here in the Chicago suburbs. Now, cost of living like food, groceries, and things like that, Chicago can be expensive. Once again, it really depends on where you're coming from, even out, but it is actually a little bit cheaper than outside of some of the other areas. Gasoline, right now is April 2025, our gasoline is about $3.35 a gallon. Once again, no idea how much it is around you, but that's another cost if you are commuting that you are going to incur. Lastly, taxes. Like I said, I'm going to be talking about home prices in a different part of this video, but taxes. The property taxes around here are extremely way above the national average, okay? So what you can expect, for instance, and this is, again, this varies by community, and this is why it can be really challenging to, when you move here, which suburb you're gonna pick. So in DuPage County, you're looking at 2.22%, and in Lake County, it's like 2.94%, where the national average is just over 1% of your property value. So you're talking a lot of money in taxes. But some places, Oak Park, which is known historically for very high taxes, is over 3%, and other places are closer to that 2%. So you really have to look into the tax structure. I can help you with that. Absolutely, we can talk about that. Give me a ring. And then lastly, homeowners insurance. I do know that some of my clients who come from, like, one of my clients came from Georgia and was telling me his homeowner's insurance went down by like 75%, but his taxes are probably going to go up a heck of a lot more than that. So that's a breakdown of what you can expect cost of living wise here in the Chicago suburbs. So you're thinking about moving to the Chicago suburbs and you want to know about home prices. Well, you're probably, that's one reason you're watching this video. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about that because I don't know where you're coming from. So it could be more, it could be less. You're looking at schools. Well, stick to the end because I am going to tell you what I think is the best value around that a lot of people are sleeping on, where you still are close to the city, you still get good schools, and you have a really low median sales price. Actually, the median home price, single family, by the way, is what I'm talking about, not condos and townhouses, is right now $380,000. So you're probably thinking, wow, that's cheap, because that is pretty cheap compared to a lot of other places in the country. But the truth is, that is the Chicago area as a whole. And we have so many different suburbs and different areas. And most people that I work with are buying homes because they want good schools. Not everybody, but most of them. And in my experience, generally speaking, you are not getting a home, a single family home in the $380,000 range if you're looking for good school systems. That's just how it is. Cut and dry, straight up for it with you. That is not how it is. Or if you do, you're gonna probably need to put in thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of work to get that home what you wanna be and even livable in some of these communities. And I'll give you an example. A lot of the areas that, high demand, places like Oak Park, right? The median sales price is $635,000 for a home there. You're looking at Naperville. Naperville is like one of the #1 rated school districts in the entire country. The schools there, Naperville, you're looking at $700,000 median sales price. Evanston, another popular destination for people who are looking to move, people who want to be close to the city, also have, good school districts. I say good, and I do this a lot because I always say you want to do your research, give me a call. I can help you understand maybe some of the deeper statistics that we use here. The Illinois school report card I feel, gives you a better handle than just looking at grade schools or niche.com. Those are places to start. But the Illinois school report card has more detail, and I think can give you some more information to lead you in a better direction, not steering, and also talking to the administration, right? I really think that can be important, calling the school administration. But if you're looking at Evanston, you're looking at a median sales price of $727,000. So now I mentioned to you that I was going to tell you a place that I thought was a hidden gem of the Chicago suburbs, a place where you're still close to the city. You got good schools, and a low median sales price. And to me, that is Brookfield. The median sales price in Brookfield is like $365 now, which is less than the median sales price for the Chicago area, and has some very highly rated schools. So don't sleep on Brookfield. I think it's a great community. It does have smaller homes. It's like post-World War II construction. You're not gonna have some of the grand homes you have in LaGrange, Naperville. But if you're looking for value for your money, don't sleep on Brookfield. All right, so that's a recap of what you can expect for home prices in the Chicago suburbs. And everybody is looking for a different thing. So give me a call and I can talk to you about these places like Brookfield that I think, might be good for some people. Other places, like I said, a lot of this has to do with your commute, what type of community you want. But that's why a lot of people give me a ring and to go over these things before they choose what community or what communities to focus on. All right, I want to talk about new construction. If you're moving from another part of the country and are used to buying new construction, or that's what you're looking for, it's probably going to be a challenge for you around here. If you are coming to work in the city, most of our new construction is very far away from the city. We're talking places that are still cornfields that are being sold off. So you're talking sometimes an hour and a half, 2-hour drive during traffic, not usually as close to public transportation. There's some new developments in Naperville, but even those are really far south of the downtown and the train. So that is one thing that you need to be aware of if that is what you're looking for. If it's new construction, I can help you with that. Reach out. There are some areas I'm showing you on this map, but you will see that most of them are really far to the west, southwest, some in the north. There's a couple pockets here and there, a little bit closer to expressways and the city, but they're few and far between, and they're probably not the developments that you're used to in some other parts of the country with a lot of amenities. A lot of times, and especially the closer you get into the city, these are little plots of land that have been sold off, and there's a lot of townhouses, some of them ranch to meet the demand of the empty nester. Maybe not what you're looking for, but I really don't know. But the one thing that's good about these areas is that you can get pretty reasonably priced new construction homes. In Plainfield, some of these are going between $300,000 and $400,000 for a single family, which is a steal actually, in terms of just your purchase price. So new construction may be a problem if that is what you are looking for and you want to be close, whether it be for work or access to the city. But if you're just moving here and you don't mind as much, maybe you're actually working in the western suburbs, in one of those communities, new construction might be for you. But give me a ring and we can figure that out together and see if that makes sense, or if you might get what you're looking for a little closer in a different type, more established community. For some is a pro and for some is a con, but if you're moving to this area, you want to know about the weather, all right? And I'm gonna talk to you about it, and I'm not just gonna say, oh, it's cold in Chicago. If you're moving from a warm weather climate, you're probably a little scared. If you've never lived in the Chicago area or a cold weather climate, then you have to get prepared, okay? And I'm going to talk about this not just as it relates to home ownership and what you can expect and how you need to maintain a home in a place that has 4 distinct seasons that has pretty extremes. We have extreme heat and we have extreme cold. So even if you grew up in the area and you're in the city and you're moving to the suburbs, give me a ring. I grew up here and I didn't maintain my home as a kid. My parents did that. And when I rented, I also didn't. So there's things that you need to be aware of. So I'm going to go over all of that with you each season. I'm going to start with the winter and go over, cost to maintain, things that you might not think about, things that you're going to need to buy. So let's start with the winter. You're moving here and you hear, oh, Chicago's a windy city. Well, here's the deal. It's not called the Windy City because of the weather. All right, that's not the reason. I'll tell you why at the end, but it does get cold here and it does get windy. So here's the deal. One of the things is our gas and electric bills are basically, they're gonna invert each other. In the wintertime, your gas bill is gonna be extremely expensive because you're running your heat, your furnace all the time. We heat our houses with gas generally. So your gas bill bill in the wintertime is gonna be high, well, and your electricity bill is generally gonna be pretty low. Now, that's gonna switch. And in the summertime, when you're cranking your AC, especially if you have like an old bungalow, you have in your heat, you're cooling your second floor, like where I live, you know, my bill is sometimes over $200 and I don't even have that big of a house. So in the summertime, your gas bill sometimes is next to nothing, 20, 30 bucks. And your electricity bill is super high if you are running AC. And if you're looking for a house and it doesn't have AC, let me tell you, on those 90-degree days in the summertime, I'm gonna talk about the heat here in a little bit, you are surely gonna wish that you had AC. So let's talk about the winter. Like I said, winters get extremely cold here. You need to be prepared for that. And there's some things that you need to know about as a homeowner, and that is freezing pipes. Our pipes will freeze. If you have your kitchen, the pipes are on an exterior wall, or you have a really cold basement, there's things that you're gonna need to do. All right here, so I mentioned to you about frozen pipes, and I wanna show you what that means and what you actually need to do for that in the wintertime, especially if you're going on a vacation. So here, this wall here I have, you see this little drip? This is something you can do when you leave, whether it's a really cold day, maybe you're gone for the weekend or for a trip. You want to have a little water running through your system so that the pipes don't freeze. That's a little tip there that you're going to need to keep in mind. Not always, but it really depends too. You see my pipes here run on the outside wall. Now this is something I'm going to pay attention to if we're looking at houses together. If my sink was over here, it wouldn't be as big of an issue because the pipes would be on the inside wall and wouldn't have as much of a chance to freeze. It also depends on how insulated your house is. But another thing you want to do here, so the pipes down here, they're on that back wall, an exterior wall. So that makes a big difference. You also want to open these, your drawers or the cabinets. You want to open the cabinets underneath all of your sinks throughout the house if you're going on vacation. So that's something that you can do to prevent pipes from freezing, and something you need to keep in mind if you live in the Chicago suburbs, because it gets bitter cold here. Frozen pipes. I've had clients who have left their house, they go on vacation, and their pipes just freeze. And you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So you want to keep it cool so you don't waste money when you're out of town or when you're at work, but you can't let it get cold enough that your pipes are going to burst. And you also need to let a little trickle of water a lot of times if you're gonna be out of town or if it's gonna be really, really cold, so your pipes don't burst. All right, another thing that you're gonna need to prepare for is snow removal. All right, you are responsible for shoveling your sidewalks, and some municipalities have rules where you can get fined if you don't shovel them within a certain period of time. So what does that require? Well, you might have to buy a snowblower, or you might have to hire a local person to help you shovel the snow. If you have some of these houses where you have a long driveway with no alley, you gotta shovel that whole driveway, and it can be a pain in the butt. And it's not only about shoveling, but it gets really, really icy, so you're gonna have to buy rock salt too. And that rock salt gets on our cars and really causes a problem. If you're living like in California or a warm weather climate, the wear and tear on your cars is nothing like what you experience here. So snow removal, you need to be prepared for that. If you park on the street, if you don't have a garage, or maybe you just keep your garage filled with stuff like I do, in the wintertime, you are gonna have to budget time to go out and warm up your car, shovel off all the snow, scrape off all the ice, and even if you park in your garage, most of our garages are detached from our homes, and it still gets cold. So you're still going to be going out to a cold car when you go out to commute if you're driving. So you need to be prepared for snow remover. Another thing, a little thing that happens sometimes is that you need to pay attention to your gutters. If your gutters fill with ice, you can get what we call ice dams, where the water actually comes back up into your house and causes damage inside your roof and inside of your house and your ceilings. So you want to make sure that your gutters drain properly, or you could have some serious damage. So you need to be prepared for the snow and the ice when you're here. Like I said, it can get really cold, sub-zero temperatures, snow sometimes feet high. Another thing that you are probably going to want to invest in if your house already doesn't have that is a humidifier. And the reason is that in the wintertime, it gets really dry, the air gets dry. And if you have hardwood floors, which a lot of our homes, old beautiful homes have original hardwood floors, is they will crack and they will start separating if you don't have a humidifier. And that actually brings in cool or air, it brings in moist air into your house during the winter when you're running your furnace. So that's another thing, which is going to run you, maybe if you don't have it, like $500 to $1,000 to install in your furnace, but that's something you're going to want to invest in so that your floors stay beautiful. All right, so I talked about the winter and how it can be here and the things you have to pay attention to maintenance-wise. Well, now I'm talking about the spring. Now, the spring in the summer in the Chicago suburbs is absolutely amazing. Everything opens up. I'm going to talk about that more a little bit later about why I think the Four Seasons are a complete and awesome pro of living in this area. But here's what you need to pay attention to about the spring if you're moving here. It's a bit schizophrenic. It's crazy. Like, you go from days, it'll get to be 80 degrees. You're like, yeah, you go a bike ride and the next day it's down to 30 or 40. It's really up and down for a while before summer really kicks in and that weather stays for good. So it can be hard to manage clothes-wise, what you're going to do for the weekend. So that's definitely might be a shock if you're coming for a place that has more even temperatures. So that's something to keep in mind. Another thing, it starts getting really wet. Not only do we have a lot of rain, which I'm going to talk about, the biggest con has to do with water, by the way, so stick with me for that, because like I said, you might not want to even live here knowing some of the water issues we have. But things start to thaw, your gutters might be clogged, so you have to get your gutters cleaned. That's something, a maintenance issue that you have to keep in mind. Also, in terms of things that you're going to be spending money on, lawn fertilization and keeping your garden and your yard is going to look like crap after a really heavy winter and hard winter. So if you're not out there doing that, like right now I'm looking at my backyard, I'm going to spend hours, putting in mulch, cutting back weeds, cutting back old growth. It just doesn't look very good. So some people they pay to have that done. So that is something you have to keep in mind, is that you're going to have, after a long winter, you're going to have some maintenance to do, and you have to pay attention to water stuff as things start thawing, localized flooding issues. Those are things that you have to keep in mind in the spring, weather-wise. All right, you're thinking about moving to the Chicago suburbs, and right now I'm going to talk about what you can expect during the summer months. I'm going through all the seasons so you can know what to expect from a living standpoint, day to day, and also how to maintain your house. So what does the summer bring? Well, sort of like super cold weather in the winter, it can get scorching hot. July is our hottest month, and it can get up to like 90 degrees, sometimes higher. But if you have not been to a place that has crazy humidity, that 90 degrees feels like it's 120, and it's super wet, and it's just could be sticky. So if you're the type of person who sweats a lot, you are not gonna like it here, I'm telling you right now. But the summer's awesome here. I think it's a really cool time of the year. There is so much to do. There's so many activities. We basically have to hibernate during the winter, so this summer is just like an explosion. But in terms of weather-wise, like I said, you can expect really hot summers here. And how does that affect your house? Well, we have a lot of old housing stock. And one of the reasons, what I'm going to do if we work together is show you how a lot of our homes were not built with AC. They don't have the same type of AC that you might be used to, that has proper ventilation, where you have a return on the ceiling for hot air to be sucked out of and cool air comes in the bottom. You don't have a lot of circulation in some of these old homes. So if you're someone who really can't stand hot spaces, especially when you sleep, reach out, because I'm going to walk you through that. We have a lot of old bungalows. Those second floors were not meant to be living space. We've fitted those out for living space now because we need more space. But I want to walk you through how a home is actually going to function, heating and cooling wise. And don't shy away from a place with no AC, because you can almost always add AC. If you love the location, you love the house, we can walk through how you can add AC. So the summer is going to be really hot here, and you need to prepare for that. One, your electricity bill is going to be off the charts. If you work from home, if you have a lot of kids, if you really need that AC running, you might be upwards of $400 or $500, depending on how big your house is during the summer months. Another thing, you are going to have to prepare yourself. We don't have a lot of irrigation systems around here, so you're going to have to get out at night with the sprinkler on your own and sprinkle your lawn. And if you go on a vacation in the middle of the summer, if you don't have someone come and, water your lawn when you're gone, that grass is going to be dead. The garden that you might have spent a bunch of time in the spring and the early summer putting together is going to be dead. So you have to prepare for those types of things. But anyways, that's a little rundown of the summer and what you can expect with your house and how you're going to manage your house during that time of the year. All right, so now we've come to the last season, fall, and I think fall is the most magnificent time in the area. You don't have the oppressive heat. You start seeing the colors change. It can be really beautiful weather, and football season is coming, and the Bears, who aren't very good, but it's awesome to have football season coming. Anyways, one of the things you can expect during the fall is you're gonna have a lot of raking to do. You know, we have a lot of trees, they drop their leaves around here. I don't know where you're coming from. You might not be used to that. You probably are, but we do have, every municipality is different. Some of them you can rake your leaves into the street and they'll actually take them away. A lot of them do not do that, and you are responsible for putting them in these brown bags that you can get at Costco or wherever, and they're just awful to try to manage, but that's what you're gonna have to do. So the fall, you can expect you know, a lot of leaves in your gutters, things like that. So you are going to have to maintain that, have your gutters cleaned, which you need to do in the fall. A lot of people also do that in the spring after the winter time. That's what you can expect in the fall. And then you also have to start winterizing your home. You have to, some people cap their AC units. They put like a thing over the top of their AC units. If you don't have a frost freeze hose bib on the side of your house, you can't just leave your hose over there in the wintertime. It's going to freeze and it's going to potentially crack that line. So you need to remove that and winterize that. Some people drain that and turn off the water from the inside. So I mentioned to you that I think one of the biggest pros of living in the Chicago suburbs is the 4 seasons. And the reason I say that is especially with kids, but even for yourself, there's always something different to look forward to. So when you have the winter come, you have ice skating, you have sledding, types of things that you can't do in the summertime. When spring rolls around, there's nothing like that first ice cream cone at the local ice cream stand. We have a lot of ice cream stands like that are just seasonal outdoor places, just awesome. You have those first unique things. We have maple syrup festivals in the spring. The summertime, you can go down to the public pool. You have the beach, Lake Michigan you can go to. And then in the fall, you have things like the pumpkin patches, apple picking. So the fall colors, the changing of the colors. So for me, having the seasons, it gives you something to look forward to at each time of the year, which I think is pretty unique. Some places, you know, you have 2 seasons and, you know, you don't have this changing of the colors and getting into the cold and different activities that you can do and look forward to. So I think that's super cool and really fun and unique about living in the Chicago suburbs. All right, if you are looking to move to the Chicago suburbs, whether you're living there now or moving from another place, you probably care about the school districts. A lot of people, when they're buying a home, that is important to them. And I'm telling you right now, that is a huge pro of the Chicago area and the Chicago suburbs specifically, and it's why a lot of my clients move here. Now, niche.com, which is a place that a lot of people go to look at school ratings, Great Schools is another one. I'm going to tell you that I recommend you do your diligence and not just look at school ratings. If this is really important to you, you know, you can call the school districts and set up an appointment and meet with the administrators, because what's important for your child and what you're looking for might be different. And I know school districts are really important, but a huge pro, and I'm going to read you some stats here. So niche.com did a study and they ranked 11,000 different school districts throughout the entire United States and came up with the top 50, and 12 of those were in the Chicago suburbs. The top 3 were in the Chicago suburbs. Adelaide E. Stevens High School District 125 was ranked number 1, and that is in Lake County. Glenbrook High School District number 225 in Cook County was ranked number 2, and Evanston Township High School District number 202, also in Cook County, was ranked number 3. So you're talking about out of the top 50, the Chicago suburbs swept the top 3. So we have a really robust school system here in the suburbs, and that's why a lot of people move to the suburbs. And so I consider that a huge pro. Now, when you're looking out here, home values are going to reflect that. Areas with really, really highly ranked school districts usually have median home prices quite a bit higher than the average around here. So you really are going to want to do your diligence and find out what's most important to you. But, you know, we might have one community right next to another one that has radically different schools. And so, you know, if schools are important to you, you want to really dig deep into where you want to be. So schools is a massive pro of living in the Chicago suburbs, and we have a ton of great schools, great school districts, and great opportunities for your children, that if you have kids, that it can really put them on a path where you can just have a lot of opportunities for learning really high-end stuff. I know some school districts, you can even get your pilot's license, little things like that really just a high level of education. So the public schools in the Chicago suburbs are amazing, and while you have high property taxes, they really do offset some of that where you don't have to pay for private schools. All right, if you are thinking to move into the Chicago suburbs, one of the best things about it is the community feel and all the activities for kids. You know, you're close to one of the biggest cities in the world, but once you get out in the suburbs, depending on which suburb you choose, and kids are still riding around on bikes, leaving their bikes out on their front yard. So many of these communities have like a downtown area, they have farmers markets, they have festivals. It's really a cool place, and it's just every weekend there's different stuff to do outside of the city of Chicago. I already talked about how great the city is, but outside of the city, these suburbs have such a wonderful community feel. They really foster a community environment, bringing kids together, bringing families together, and it's just really cool. You know, I have some video here for when I was in Riverside at the Easter egg hunt. I mean, there's just so many activities. You are never going to be bored with your kids, and I think that sense of community that you can get in this Chicago suburbs is a huge pro of moving to this area. You know, we have houses that are not super spread out. Our houses are close together. Our communities are close together. You know, you have two communities. It's not very spread out, so it's not like huge driving distances to get to these places. I mentioned the traffic can be bad, but you know, you're going on a Saturday, you can get to a lot of different places and you can go visit different areas. So for me, that community feel is a huge part of living in the Chicago suburbs. If you like going out, maybe putting the kids to bed, getting a babysitter, going out, you don't have a lot of stuff, a lot of options. A lot of restaurants close early, you know, 10 o'clock. If that's your deal, it's just not, it gets dead. A lot of these communities, they're just dead, right? Some of them even before 10. And some of them, depending on where you are, don't have a lot of options for restaurants, don't have a lot of entertainment. You know, outside of restaurants, you know, if you like music, things like that, plays, there's just, you know, certain communities have those. And so if you're interested in communities that have more of those, like movie theaters, maybe plays, actual entertainment venues, like going to see concerts, like local shows, there are communities, so reach out. I can help you find those types of places if that's what you want. But there's a lot of really quiet, just nothing going on type communities in the suburbs. So it really depends what you want, but I think that is one of the cons. If you're moving from a place with a lot of activity, or maybe you're moving from Chicago into the suburbs, you know, you're going to probably be a little bored at night. It's gonna be quiet, but you might be a little bored. So that is one of the cons of moving to the Chicago suburbs. All right, jobs. You probably want a job, right? Or you might be moving here for a job. But what does the job market look like in the Chicago suburbs and Chicago in general? Because the truth is that a lot of people live in the suburbs, but they work in Chicago. And the thing is, Chicago is one of the biggest cities in the country, and it is the best city in the world, in my opinion. And there are just a lot of different job opportunities. So if you're in the healthcare, right? You have Advocate Healthcare, you have Rush University Medical, you have Northwestern University, you have University of Chicago. In the suburbs, you have Edwards Elmhurst Hospital. In Winfield, you have Northwestern Medicine. There are a ton of job opportunities in healthcare. If you are looking for technology, we have like Google in Fulton Market. That area has really come up, is huge right now. McDonald's headquarters is there as well. If you are looking in manufacturing in Lisle, we have Molex, Schaumburg, there's Motorola. So there are just tons of different opportunities. Elk Grove Village has numerous data centers and a bunch of business there. So there are just tons of opportunities if you want to change careers, you want to change companies. In the financial sector, we have CME, Northern Trust. There's just a ton of different opportunities. So jobs is a huge plus of moving to the Chicago area. You just have a bunch of opportunities if you want to make changes. So that is a recap of the jobs and the job opportunities in the Chicago suburb. And if you're thinking about moving here, there's a lot to think about. It's not just the community you want to live in, the commute, the type of field that you're looking for, but it's also about the right house. We have a lot of weird old houses. And so if you're interested in learning more about specific houses, how I work with people, I always love helping people find great homes. I really do my best. I joke, my job is to help you not buy a house, because most people, they look with rosy colored eyes and they don't think about some of the things that I think you really need to think about. And so if you want to know more about moving to the Chicago suburbs, have specific houses in mind, or want to learn more about working with me, reach out, shoot me a text. Like I said, I absolutely love helping people buy the right house, not just a house. However long it takes, I want you to buy the right house.